We have our next guest coming up right now. Welcoming to the show, Jay Young, CEO of King Operating Corporation and author of The Upside of Oil and Gas Investing, How the New Model Works and Why It Puts the Traditional Model to Shame. Thank you for coming in tonight.
Hey, well, thank you for having me again. I appreciate it. Good talking to you.
It's good to talk to you, too. So OPEC just announced the biggest cut to oil production since the start of the pandemic. Really, really bad news for American drivers.
It really is. And I'll tell you, it's not going to get any better either because, with what Biden did with the strategic reserve, he's falsely put together a lot of barrels that we're using right now in the United States. And when that goes away, when that strategic reserve, 1 million barrels a day goes away, we're going to be held with no oil from OPEC and no oil from the strategic reserves. And when the United States is not back to drilling for oil in the United States like it isn't, we're going to have a major problem with trying to go to the pump and not spend over $100 every time we go. It's ridiculous, and I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what we could do to save it at this point. I think it's kind of like, Britain and all the bad policies that they made. They're literally going to freeze to death this winter because they can't heat their homes. We're doing the same thing right now with what we're doing in the United States. We're going to have huge, huge problems. OPEC doesn't have this oil. They don't have enough oil to just come into the United States and go, oh, okay, we're a savior. He went in his hand, had in his hand back a couple of years ago, last year, and said, hey, we need some oil. Well, nobody in their right mind is going to come back, Stacy, and say, oh, hey, yeah, sure. Hey, we'll sell you more oil for less money. Who wants to do that? Obviously, they don't. So at some point, a couple of months ago, they said, okay, well, I'll tell you what, let's increase our production. Let's increase our production 3 million barrels a day. They couldn't even do that. Because the oil supply in the United States and the world is so tight that any glitch anywhere sends prices either up or down. Up or down. You saw with the strategic reserve, which that's the reason why oil went from $120 a barrel to 77, 78 not long ago. And now the election's almost over. Strategic reserves are almost over. You're seeing prices go up. And when we don't have that strategic reserve 1 million barrels a day, number one, we're not going to be able to buy back any oil and refill those tanks, which is sad. It's sad for the United States. But we're not going to be able to, we're not going to have that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's like every day in the United States, we need 20 million barrels a day. Our production, our appetite, what George Bush used to say is our addiction to oil is 20 million barrels a day. And Trump had this up to 14.5 million. He was exporting oil. He was buying oil at cheap prices to put it in these tanks called our strategic reserves. He was topping it off. I mean, everything was going good. But then all of a sudden, we quit drilling for oil in the United States. And when we do, we don't have the oil. And then the pandemic happened. We slowed down, almost stopped. And now we are needing oil in the United States, and we're not doing anything in our right mind to get it. And we're at 12 million barrels
we're not doing anything to get it. That's true, if I can break in here, Jay. But there's a little bit more to this.
Sorry, I had too much coffee.
Yeah.
I had too much coffee, Stacy. I'm sorry.
Lots of coffee. Awesome. Great commentary, though. Glad you're here. So you have also the reaction from President Biden on the OPEC decision. He literally said he's disappointed, which, I mean, I'm disappointed when I can't get, if I go to Starbucks and they don't have any pumpkin loaf left, I'm disappointed. Disappointed does not begin to describe how the President of the United States, who's the CEO of this whole operation here, 300 and some odd million people who are depending on him to make great decisions, he has to be more than, oh, I'm disappointed by OPEC's decision. He actually says he wants to limit their control. How does he limit the control of foreign nations over foreign oil when we have all of our own oil anyway?
Yeah, well, see, that's the problem is we don't have enough oil in the United States to get us, well, in production-wise, in refinery-wise. That's a different discussion, but we can't be totally independent, and especially under this administration and with all the different things. Even if he said, okay, hey, I made a mistake. All right, let's go back to drilling. Let's just go back to drilling. We're going to give tax incentives. I mean, it would still take years to really get everything underneath our feet and start drilling for oil in the United States and get everything back together because people just, they just don't, like public companies, Exxon makes $6 billion. And normally in this world, I'm a fourth generation oil and gas guy. I've seen my great-grandfather had 12 kids. If you're a man, you're in the oil business, and if you're a woman, you're married to somebody in the oil business. I've been in this business, good or bad, forever, and every time that you have oil prices that go through the roof, $80, $90, $100 a barrel, companies start drilling again. The best solution for high oil prices normally is high oil prices because companies have money to drill. They have excess money to drill. Exxon makes $6 billion the first quarter of this year, and they spend $10 billion buying back their stock instead of putting it to work in the oil field, drilling new wells, increasing their rig. They're at 22 rigs right now. I mean, there's independent companies out there with almost 22 rigs. I mean, they're just not drilling for oil in the United States, and so they're not replenishing their supply. They're just kind of not doing what they normally would do, which is very, very hard to believe, and it's hard for us to think that we're going to have the supply that we need in the United States in a year from now, 2 years from now, to meet our demand. We had 375 million people in this country not long ago. We're at 325 now, and yes, electric cars are coming. And I'm not one to say, okay, Stacy, we're not going to have these electric cars. Oh yeah, we are, but that's not the answer. Electric cars. I mean, you talked about electric cars. The last time I was on your show, I remember because I was in Nashville or somewhere, and me and you talked about electric cars, and it was ugly. They're not the answer. I mean, what if your battery goes out in one of those electric cars? It's like a third or a fourth of your value if you're stuck with the battery. But anyway, yes, they're coming. But
so I think the electric cars are, I mean, obviously we already have some, but the infrastructure isn't there. So they can have electric cars coming in. It's perfectly fine, but it won't stop Americans who want fossil fuel powered vehicles from wanting cheap gas for those cars. As we close out here, I know that President Biden, he's done all of the wrong moves. What could a Republican Congress do to kind of right the ship, especially with the strategic oil reserve? Is there anything that the Republicans can do to fix that if they take the House and the Senate?
The only thing they can do, they're not going to find any oil to replace the strategic reserves. Nobody's sitting on 20 million, 100 million barrels of oil for them just to go, okay, bring it on in. I mean, number one, it's $80, $90 a barrel. They're not going to buy it. They're not going to replenish it. Unfortunate for that, number one. Number two is if I was to discuss with a person that was the new president, what I would tell them is continue on the track of drill, baby, drill. Don't go to these companies and say, oh, we're going to be ESG and we don't want fossil fuels. And I mean, Biden threw stuff on fossil fuels as soon as he got into office. Not good. We need fossil fuels. We need it. If not, we're going to have a huge problem. So I'd go to banks, I'd go to institutions, I'd go to public companies, I'd go to state governments, I'd go to federal governments. I would pass laws to give people the right and give them better tax breaks. And I would do that because that's the way that you get, the drilling for oil and gas. We're not ready for that. I wish Biden would have said, okay, let's study our demand for oil, and let's don't kill it. He got real lucky on a few things here, strategic reserve and the coronavirus in China, which is going to start letting up. But he got lucky in the last year before the elections, or I don't know if lucky means you're spending 1 million barrels a day of our strategic reserve, which is only for our military and for war. That's what our strategic reserve is. It's not for, some president to use just in case he wants to try to win an election and put some oil on the market.
Well, but he's definitely taking that tack with the strategic reserve. Tell us where we can buy the book, The Upside of Oil and Gas Investing.
Yeah, and The Upside of Oil and Gas is on Apple. You can do it on Amazon. I'm doing the audio book now, so if you don't like to read, you can listen to it. And the next 30 days, I'm going to have that out. And, but if you don't, and I do alternative investments, our company does, but if you're not there and you want to just go buy a stock, there's Pioneer. I'm a big holder of Ring Energy, RING Energy. I'm not on the board. I'm not a stockbroker. I'm not telling you can lose all your money, blah, blah, blah. But put your money into something right now. Ring Energy is $2.80 or 90 cents. Buy 1,000 shares. Do something with your money right now because you're going to be thanking me 2-3 months. I told everybody this on a radio show this morning, and the stock opened up and it's up like 15 cents today. And that was on a opening. The opening bell, I was on a call in Cincinnati or somewhere, Fort Wayne, Indiana, and I told them to buy the stock. Just put your money to work for you because the oil and gas business is going to be around for a long time, not forever, for a long time. The next 3 to 5 years is going to be good. The stock market's not a great deal, but right now a good deal is oil and gas. Stay with it. Call me on my hotline there, or email me. Upside of Oil and Gas Investing. For the first 5 people that go to our website and fill out our online deal, I'll send you an autographed copy of the book.
All right. Sounds wonderful. Jay Young, at J.R. Young, Texas on Twitter. You can find his Twitter handle on our Twitter handle, SiriusXM Patriot 125. Thank you so much for joining tonight, Jay.
Absolutely. Hey, great for having me on, and I appreciate it, and call me anytime.